everybody. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat. I'm Mike Griffith, and really pleased to be joined by the president of the NFL Draft Bible, Zach Petrall. Zach, thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. I'm excited to talk some football, talk some Georgia prospects, and Senior Bowl, man. I can't wait. Senior Bowl week. It's almost like Christmas for me.
Yeah, no doubt. You follow these prospects year round. And of course, I usually like to go down to the Senior Bowl, especially this year with Georgia having a record number of 6 guys down there. It was going to be 7, and we'll talk about that. Why there's actually could have been 8, but for now 6 guys. But the way the Senior Bowl is right now, Zach, it's closed down. So guys like me and you, normally we'd be working the lobby, talking, flagging people down, catching up to them on the escalators, walking down the street, downtown Mobile with these coaches, hanging out around the field, right in the middle of these drills, all that off limits. Media stuck in the stands, really kind of discouraged the media. And I can understand that, Zach, especially when you take into consideration that the NFL Combine has been canceled. So that being the case, how important is the Senior Bowl now that there won't be an NFL Combine this year?
Oh, this is huge. I mean, especially for these seniors, they do have that March 1st date, but if you're going to the Senior Bowl, it's pretty much a done deal that you're going to the NFL draft, and you're not going to have that combine to really show out. So, I mean, to put it lightly, this is huge. This is your real last chance to, show out for these NFL evaluators. So putting a big show on for your last hurrah as a senior is going to be big time.
No doubt about it. Get that face-to-face time, albeit there'll be some plexiglass between the prospects and the NFL general managers, head coaches. I mean, the Senior Bowl is really almost like an NFL convention. I mean, everybody's there. It's funny. You see the staffs going around, everybody wearing the same kind of shirts or, uniforms, and they kind of go around in mobs, and, reacquaint themselves. It's one big network. It really is. And they all know each other, and nobody's really going to be completely forthcoming with who they're watching. But there are going to be a lot of eyes on the quarterbacks this particular Senior Bowl event, especially you take a look at some of the talent that's there. Kellen Mond, Texas A&M, Mac Jones from Alabama, Jamie Newman, a guy that was at Georgia for 8 months, and before that, Wake Forest. Felipe Franks from Arkansas, Notre Dame's Ian Book, Sam Ehlinger. All the Georgia fans are going, we've seen all these guys, played all these quarterbacks, right? Trask was going to be there. He's pulled out. When a guy like Kyle Trask pulls out, Zach, does that hurt Trask? Because part of me wonders, I understand he said it's his ankle, but why not at least just go and meet with people? Is it almost like, is there something he's hiding, or do they just don't feel like they want people to eyeball him standing next to another quarterback or something?
Yeah, you could go both ways with this, and I'll put it in both perspectives here. One, he had a tremendous season. I mean, he was up for he's a Heisman watch guy. I mean, this is someone that could have won the Heisman. He had a tremendous year. But then you look at it and it's like, okay, what is he hiding? Why is he not going out there and performing next to some of these other quarterbacks who, I mean, in my eyes, some of these guys could potentially really show out and be like and be like one of those guys that just goes on the rise after a big Senior Bowl. So is his ankle really hurt? I mean, it definitely could be. Or did not want to stand next to his old teammate Felipe Franks up close and personal when he's looking 6'6" and slinging that rock around.
Yeah, that's kind of what my thought is. Last year Jake Fromm had to throw behind Jacob, or a couple years ago, Fromm had to throw behind Eason at the combine. And if you throw behind somebody else, maybe your arm doesn't look so weak, but you throw behind the strongest arm guy there, and it's all relative. That's why you just can't put enough emphasis on what these scouts get out of these other guys, Mon Jones, Frank's Book, Sam Ehlinger. Anybody that you're particularly high on?
I'm not particularly high on many quarterbacks in this class that are going to the Senior Bowl. Outside of, obviously in the draft class, you got big names like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. But when you look at the guys at the Senior Bowl, Mac Jones had a tremendous year. I think people are going to start talking about him as a potential first-round prospect after they get to see him up close and personal at the Senior Bowl. Guys like Sam Ehlinger, I've heard some scouts say that he's going to be a day 2 pick. If you ask me, I think he's a very good college quarterback. I'm not sure much of his talent translates to the next level as a quarterback, but he's definitely a talented player and someone that will make an NFL roster in my eyes. But Kellen Mond, I'm really excited to see him. Same with Jamie Newman, two talented guys. solid arms, great athletes. I think these are going to be two guys that are going to see, especially with Jamie Newman not being not playing this year, opting out. Obviously, you guys know that. So him having a big Senior Bowl is going to be key. But I think Kellen Mond is going to be someone that's going to really, he's going to have a lot of eyes on him, where he's going to potentially make it to the back end of day 2 there.
You mentioned Felipe Franks a moment ago, and we talked about him or Trask, and Franks beat out Kyle Trask. I mean, I don't know that Trask is a better NFL prospect than Franks. I know that sounds kind of weird, but Franks is a big guy with decent mobility, a really big arm. I almost feel like Franks has got the bigger upside, Zach.
Yeah, with Franks, it's a boom or bust situation. With Franks, you're looking at a lot of injuries. With Kyle Trask, I think you're looking at a very raw prospect that has a lot of tools. So I think when you look at molding those types of prospects, NFL teams are going to like Trask a little bit more. But I can see a team wanting to take a shot on Felipe Franks because, yeah, like you said, he's got a huge arm. He's got tremendous size. The injuries are a little bit scary, with those injuries that he had throughout his college career. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely someone I could see taking a risk on if you don't want to pull the trigger on a fringe first round pick. I mean, I'll be honest with you, guys like Mac Jones and Kyle Trask being talked about as first round picks is a little absurd to me. I don't think those are two guys that you want to take in the first round, but they will go in the first round. I could really see that. So waiting on a quarterback like a Felipe Franks, try to develop him, give him a few years behind a veteran quarterback. That definitely could be someone that could really, really hit.
Yeah, the prototypical size and arm strength. You can't coach those two things. And, you mentioned Sam Ehlinger a minute ago. We saw him beat Georgia in a Sugar Bowl a couple of years back with his mobility. I kind of put him and Ian Book. Am I right there? Do I kind of two peas in a pod? Guys that maybe a little undersized, good mobility, but do they really have NFL arms? I mean, it's good to see these guys here. They need to be there. Like you said, Jamie Newman opting out. I mean, this is Jamie Newman's career, right? I mean, he went from Wake Forest to Georgia to play in a pro-style offense. And the fact of the matter is he had not won the starting job at Georgia when he opted out. And I know he said COVID, Zach, but I've got to think that the fact that he hadn't won the job after 8 months, and at that time, Kirby Smart thought JT Daniels was going to be eligible to play early off that knee. I've got to think that him not being named the starter had to play into that to some degree.
Yeah, you got to speculate a little bit. That there's definitely some concern there. Why would you opt out when you were just at Wake Forest? You were fairly successful. You come to Georgia, a really good football team. You could play in the spotlight in just about every single week. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, maybe he didn't make the cut. Maybe they didn't want to put him as a starter week 1. So there's definitely reason to speculate, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Those quarterbacks are going to get a lot of the attention. People are going to hear them talked about all week long. Zach, Petrall and I, we're kind of getting ahead of the game because, the guys arrived Saturday and they were COVID tested Saturday, Sunday, Monday, passed all 3 tests. They've been quarantined. Tonight they ran. There was no real football played. Tomorrow, helmets and shoulder pads. They'll be on the field for the first time. And the NFL scouts, it's really not even about the scouts. It's about the general managers and the head coaches that are going to have their eyes on. Before we dive into the analysis of the Georgia players there, Zach, who are some of the guys that you're going to be looking for at the Senior Bowl to maybe make a jump, or guys that you're wanting to learn more about that are down there?
Yeah, one guy I'm really excited to take a closer look at is Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan. He's the wide receiver, played a little bit of corner there as well, has dealt with some injuries, undersized guy, but he's super physical, has a great release, a really good route runner, but wasn't asked to run a big route tree out in West Virginia. So getting him up against this type of talent, I think is going to be key to watch. Also, Spencer Brown, the offensive tackle from Northern Iowa, he's got all the tools in the world. People are talking about him being a first-round pick. I want to see him go up against some of these defensive linemen that are here.
Well, I'll tell you, we'll start right there. One of the defensive linemen he may be going up against is Malik Herring. Malik was a guy, and I don't know, Pro Football Focus metrics kind of hit and miss for me. It's one more statistic you can throw out there. Not exactly sure that it's the best indicator, but not always the best indicator, I should say. But Malik was the highest rated defensive lineman coming back in the SEC. And yet, Zach, I don't know that anybody's drooling to see him. I look at Malik as a solid guy. I'm going to make my guess, like maybe maybe a day two guy if he shows out well at the combine. But what are your thoughts, impressions on Malik Herring, that defensive end from Georgia?
Yeah, see, for me, when I'm watching defensive linemen, I like these high motor guys. I like these strong, powerful guys, which Malik Herring, dude, that motor runs hot all the time. He's going 100% every single play. It doesn't matter. You guys might be a little bit closer to the team than I am, but he seems like a real leader on that team too. Always dabbing his guys up after a play and everything. So I like him as a locker room guy. Is he an outstanding player? No, he's not an outstanding player by any means, but I think he's someone you could put in a locker room. People are going to like him. People are going to gravitate towards him. And I feel like he's going to be someone that really kind of helps mold a defense, give him a little bit more depth at the next level.
Right. Maybe makes the team. That's the big thing. Do you make the team? Obviously, different levels of it. Do you get drafted or do you go, free agent? That's kind of where it started, as you said, Zach. All these guys here, if you're at the Senior Bowl, pretty good chance you're going to be drafted. Usually a good indicator. Not always, but pretty high percentage of these guys are going to get drafted. And it's just kind of where. And as we said, there's no combine this year. So it's going to be relying on pro day. We got to see what kind of numbers Malik runs. What does he do in the bench? This game is also good because it gives guys a chance who've been injured, maybe to get a little bit healthier and perform. And I want to talk about Monty Rice. Monty was obviously a 3-year starter and a team captain, a Mike linebacker at Georgia. Had that foot injury really from the Alabama game on, opted out of the bowl game to get a little bit healthier. What does the NFL Draft Bible tell us about Monty Rice?
Yeah, it's a bit of a split room when it comes to our staff. For me, I like him a lot. For me, he's a day 2 pick. I think I have him as a high third, late second. So I love his play and coverage when he drops back in coverage. I think he does a tremendous job. Amazing athlete. I think this dude's going to test off the charts when he gets to run or whatever they're going to do for the combine right now. I think he's going to just test amazing. I think he's going to run well. Not the fastest guy in the world, but I definitely think he's someone that's going to come in and surprise a lot of people this week and surprise a lot of people when he tests as well.
I'll tell you what. Now, we talked earlier about the guys at the Senior Bowl all likely being drafted. This guy here kind of surprised me a little bit that he didn't come back for another year. He was a senior, and I know that, technically seniors usually move on, but this year everybody could. Mark Webb was an extra DB. He played the nickel. He's long. I know he's good in run support. But Zach, I'm not sure what kind of number Mark's going to run. How important is that number going to be for Mark Webb? And what are your thoughts about him playing safety, nickel, or corner in the NFL? How do you guys have him rated?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a solid player. I was just talking with one of our guys that's actually down in Mobile this week, and basically we're just saying he better come in above 170. He better do whatever he can to put on some weight. And yeah, that moving him into free safety, maybe letting him use his range a little bit more, I think is something that's going to be beneficial at the next level. I want to say we have him. I'm trying to look to see what we have him running for the 40 as an estimated time. Because I know that he's not slow by any means. I want to see him running the 4.4s. Right now, it looks like we got him listed at a 4.53. So if he can get right. If he can get in those 4.4s, mid 4.4s, I mean that's gonna be huge for him, especially if they want to make the move to safety and maybe play him a little bit more, single high or something like that.
Yeah, interesting. A couple of years ago, DeAndre Baker was a guy still went in the first round. Not as high as we thought. DeAndre only ran like a 4.48. We were thinking he might run a high 4.3. Those 40 times are so important. And I was talking with Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl last week, and he said, when they do these 40s, they need to do them at the stadium so that they can do them, on the yard marker and really have somebody there that can hand time them, because these NFL scouts, and you can speak to this, Zach, they are so precise with that 40. I mean, they all have their own formula. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on that, why that's such an important number? Because everybody goes, why do they measure the 40? What would be your answer to that?
Well, I'll tell you, the 40's big for the 10-yard split, in my opinion. When I'm looking at a 40 and I'm breaking down what a prospect's doing, I want to see that 10-yard split, and I want to see it. I don't want to see this big number. I want to see burst. I want to see acceleration. I want to see quick feet, and I want to see him to get going up to full speed in a reasonable amount of time. Now, if you're running a 4.53 and you're a corner and you're kind of scrawny, you better have a good 10-yard split. Is all I'm going to say, because if that's slow, it's not gonna translate well to the NFL.
Right. One of the guys I know you're high on that I think's got pretty decent speed. We didn't see a lot of DJ Daniel this year. He had an ankle injury early, and then Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes were playing ahead of him. But you really have said you really like what you see from DJ Daniel. Talk a little bit more about DJ, what you see.
Yeah, he's a guy that I could see running in a high 4.3. I think we have him listed around a 4.4, somewhere around there. I think he's quick. I think he's fast. I think he's got a good closing burst. Tremendous athlete. What I love in a corner is someone that can play up and someone that can turn his hips and burn with you. He's got no problem. He's got just oily hips, silky smooth hips, which I love to see. The ability to just turn and run with wide receivers, not get burned over the top, stay in phase, get in your trail position, and play a good technique. DJ Daniel does that. He's not regarded as a day one or a day two pick. I would consider him at the back end of day two, to be honest with you. I know NFL teams, I think they're looking at him right around late round 4, early round 5 type of range. But I really like this kid. I'd be happy if a team took a shot on him early.
Wow, that's saying a lot, and he did perform really well in 2019, really good 2019 film, but just not a lot this year.
I know what really got him, I think, is Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes are studs, man. And having to play behind two studs like that, it doesn't really look great on your film, even though you are playing decent. So that might have hurt him a little bit, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think DJ's an NFL player. We'll see where he goes. Big Ben Cleveland's a guy that, suffered a broken femur a couple years ago. Big, strong, powerful offensive guard. I don't know the value for guards. I know Nagy was saying that a lot more of these teams now want the big, powerful guys like Ben Cleveland because they're shorter quarterbacks. They don't want the pocket pushed quite as much anymore. Georgia turned out a pretty good one last year, stealing Solomon Kinley. I really like Solomon. He was a steal for the Dolphins in the 4th round. Where do you see Big Ben Cleveland going, and what are your thoughts on that offensive guard from Georgia?
Yeah, that dude's a mauler, man. He's powerful. He's strong. He's got a good lower half. He's not one I want to match up in the trenches with. That actually at the NFL Draft Bible, we have him as a day 2 guy. It looks like a late round 3 here. So I could definitely see him having his name called on day 2. Maybe he slips into early day 3 because, like you said, how many NFL teams are really valuing these big mauling guards? You look at a guy like Dante Brown from Alabama. That people are talking about him going early round 2 just because of his size, and the kid's got power. He's pretty good too. But Ben Cleveland's kind of built the same way: big, strong, powerful, mean. So I could definitely see a team taking him, somewhere around the round 3 range.
We're talking with Zach Petraw. He is the president of the NFL Draft Bible. Zach, tell people where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, you find me at NFL_Zach. You can also find the NFL Draft Bible at NFL Draft Bible. All of our stuff, we actually just moved over to Sports Illustrated within the last week or so here. So it's been a big move, lots of new things coming, and lots more to come.
One of the guys that Jim Nagy said he really liked and expected to break out this week was tight end Trey McKinney. And Trey really didn't do a whole lot at Georgia. He had an arthroscopic knee procedure done in fall camp that slowed him down. Never really felt like he hit stride. What are your thoughts on Trey McKinney, that transfer from Florida State, Zach?
Yeah, the kid's a good player. I personally feel like Georgia and Florida State both kind of misused him a little bit. I think they could have used him in the passing game just a little bit more. Georgia liked using him in the H-back. I think he is a great athlete. I think he's a good route runner. He's smooth. I don't see too many false steps in his routes. Shows some flexibility, able to create space, good body control. Get him in the right system. Let him do a little bit of developing. I think you got a good prospect on your hands here.
Yeah, I think he's an NFL player too. Nagy identified him last summer and really thought we would see more from Trey McKinney at Georgia. But again, that injury in the preseason and Darnell Washington, a freshman that kind of developed. And really, Georgia didn't really get their passing game going in earnest until the final 4 games. Now, this next guy I want to talk to you about, this is a tough one now. This one's real bittersweet for Georgia fans. Richard LeCounte had been a fan favorite throughout his career, and a team captain. He was particularly close to Kirby Smart. So imagine our shock, Zach, here on Halloween night when we learned that Richard LeCounte was riding an unregistered dirt bike without lights at dusk on Halloween on Macon Highway and gets into an accident, that quite frankly, he was fortunate to survive. He was knocked unconscious and transported by ambulance to the hospital. essentially a season-ending injury. I got to ask you, I mean, business is business. Let's start there. How much money did this guy lose? How much draft stock could Richard LeCounte have lost potentially from an accident like that and missing the second half of the season?
Yeah, missing time it's not good one way or the other, which, whether it's on the field or off the field, that's just game film that you're losing to giving the NFL coaches. Okay, so when something like this happens and it's off field, it seems reckless. You don't really I don't really know all the details to it. I know it was a motorcycle accident on Halloween and it ended his season and he was unconscious, like you said, all that. I don't know to the extent of what was going on, what was happening in his head there, why he was doing what he was doing. I had him as an early second round pick coming into the year. I thought he was a tremendous athlete. I thought he was a very good safety, one of the best safeties in the country. So to see his season end early like that was heartbreaking, and it was scary, man. That is a scary accident to be in. With this injury, with missing time, with the question mark of what happened, really, it's going to drop him into day 3. I could only imagine. I have him as a 3rd round prospect still. I still think he's a tremendous player. I think he's a very good safety. If he slips into round 3, someone's going to get a steal because the kid can play.
Yeah, Richard really can. And I was really looking forward to the Senior Bowl to see Richard put his talents on display. But Zach, I get the news last week. His agent pulled him out of the game. We talked about Kyle Trask pulling out of the game earlier and how it's just not a good look when you pull out, because a lot of these NFL people, they want to lay eyes on you. And it makes it and an agent's got to know that, hey, if we're pulling him out, we really better have a good reason, because it's going to create questions. It's going to create red flags. So it needs to be beneficial to pull him out to make it worth that bad look, I guess. And how surprised were you that Richard pulled out? And, what are some of the good reasons for agents to pull guys out of the Senior Bowl, do you think?
Some of the good reasons, I mean, one is injury. If you're not 100% and you're just trying to push it at 80%, that's just going to make you look bad. It's going to drop your draft stock. Thinking about why you do it, it's going to be to try to save you money, save the prospect money. Okay, I'm hearing you're a late round 3 guy. Okay, like someone's going to take you round 3. Don't go to the Senior Bowl. Don't play and perform poorly if you're injured. It's just going to make you look bad. It's going to lose your money and your value is going to drop. That's one area to look at it. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a bad look. I always go back to Tyler Johnson last year. He was highly regarded coming into the season. Had a really solid year. Rashad Bateman obviously played very well too. And then Tyler Johnson his stock starts to drop. Character concerns start to come up for whatever reason. I couldn't find any character concerns about him. But then he pulls out of the Shrine game, it was the East West Shrine game he pulls out of. And everyone's like, well, what the heck's going on? Why do you do this? That was a bad look for him, because no one knows why. So you look at it that way, and it's like, it really is not the greatest look for pulling out of the Senior Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah, because at the very least, even if you don't play in the game, you get those face-to-face meetings. And that is just huge because
yep.
Yeah, well, we talked about it. There's not going to be an NFL Combine, and a lot of these GMs and head coaches aren't going to be traveling to the pro day because they're not going to be allowed in the building. The campuses are saying, "Hey, COVID-19 lockdown. You're going to be welcome to sit in the stadium and watch them run the 40." But as far as everything going on in the building, it's not going to. Now, that's not to say there won't be a coach or a GM here or there that will travel to a campus. But when we look at Georgia, if we're ranking them right now, who would be the highest rated Georgia player that people would be coming to see? Now, I know we've talked about the seniors that are here, but, Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, Trey Hill, the center. Your thoughts on those guys that aren't the underclassmen?
The other underclassmen you want to know about?
Yeah, your thoughts on the Georgia underclassmen.
Yeah, Azeez Ojulari, who I was just going to mention there, but he's the best edge rusher in this class, in my opinion. I mean, I think this kid's a phenomenal player. I mean, I think if he finds a system where they can put him in a 3-4 and rush him off ball, I think he's going to have a really good career, possibly make a Pro Bowl or two. A couple of other ones though, Hill, he's your guys' center. I think he'd make a really good guard. Get him in a phone booth and let him play with his head up a little bit. you're gonna get a good prospect there if you move him to guard, in my opinion.
And then as far as Campbell and Stokes, I got to tell you, I'm partial to Stokes. I think Stokes is, I don't want to say a secret, but I just don't think he gets enough love because, Campbell's the long, tall track guy. Stokes is fast too, a little bit more sticky. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Trey Waynes.
Stokes is better than Campbell, in my opinion. I'll be honest with you. I think this kid's going to run a 4.3, and with his, I mean, Stokes' length, Stokes is pretty good size too. I mean, he could cover so much ground, and his ability to even just drop him in zone and let him read and react and be that instinctive player that he is. I think you're going to find a round one prospect out of him. If people let him slip out of the first round, I think you're making a mistake.
Should Campbell have come back? Because Campbell didn't really have the best year this year, but he is that prototypical long 6'1", 6'2". Like I said, he runs good. Some people have questions of the hips. Some people have even suggested maybe safety, Zach.
Yeah, I'm thinking that he should have went back as well. When I was going through the process of trying to figure out, this is such a weird year. Like, this was such a hard year to figure out who's coming out and who's not coming out. And you had the March 1st date for seniors, and it just jumbles everything else together. It's wild. But so trying to figure out if Tyson Campbell was going to come out, I was like, he should return. He had a good year. He has the size. He's got the skills, got the athleticism. I think that he came out because of so many people going back. He's like, why not? Why don't I just come out? I'm going to go higher than I would if everyone was actually declaring. So why not just come out this year? And yeah, test his ability at safety. I definitely think that's a good option there.
Yeah, I got it. Did you say March 1st was the date on the seniors?
Yeah, so that's a new rule this year with the COVID deal going on, is that seniors who are out of eligibility have till March 1st to make their decision.
Oh,
so they get a free year basically.
So, but we could still see, what you're saying is we could still see some seniors that end up leaving if they have until March 1st to decide.
Yeah, well, yeah. So essentially, I mean, all the seniors that are out of eligibility already technically have to declare for the NFL draft. But since the whole COVID thing, the NFL is letting seniors put their paperwork in up until March 1st and say, I'm coming back. I'm going to use that free year of eligibility.
Wow, that's going to be really interesting. Zach, I really appreciate you joining us again. Tell folks where they can find the NFL Draft Bible.
Yeah, you can find the NFL Draft Bible. We are now located on Sports Illustrated, so it's si.com/NFL/draft. All of our content's going up there. I'm the one posting all the content, so it's going up nonstop every single day. I mean, we got just lots going on over there. We got boots on the ground at the Senior Bowl right now. Got a few guys down there. I know they're not going to get as much action as they would if it was a normal year. Me and I think it's like 7 or 8 of our other scouts have virtual access to the Senior Bowl, so we're going to be doing recaps to that every single day after practice. And then you can find me on Twitter at NFL_Zach, as well as the NFL Draft Bible at NFL Draft Bible.
Great stuff. Zach, thanks so much for joining us for the first half of the show. I want to take a moment now to recognize our sponsor, Ingles. Ingles has really gone all out for us, on the front lines, making sure they've kept the supplies coming, taking care of us through this incredibly difficult time, unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. Let's take a moment to recognize Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for real. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back. With open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Really enjoyed having Zach on from the NFL Draft Bible to talk about the Georgia players that are at the Senior Bowl, who needs to prove what, kind of gave you an idea on where everybody falls right now. This is a very fluid process, though. It's, everybody kind of goes into the season. Really, these guys have had draft grades going back a couple of years, but they go into the season with the grade, and then the scouts kind of adjust as the season goes on, eyeball them, move them up, move them down, just like they would on a recruiting board. But the Senior Bowl is a very, very big event. I saw somebody say, oh, Richard LeCounte didn't need that. Well, actually, he really, really did need that. And it's disappointing to me that Richard isn't there, because one of the things that Richard does best is motivate the people around him. He has incredible charisma. This is a guy that interviews unbelievably well. So for them not to want to put Richard in front of those general managers and those head coaches, he really must not be doing very well. He must not look good. And let me tell you, when you go in the hospital for a while and you get knocked unconscious, and the fact that he wasn't able to play is very revealing. Now, Kirby put him in for that last play in the Peach Bowl because he'd gone through all the workouts, but that was very revealing. And it's really going to bear watching how Richard LeCounte does. I know how many Georgia fans are behind Richard, certainly his teammates. Very popular Bulldog, just a shocking and disappointing night on Halloween when he wrecked an unregistered motorcycle on Macon Highway. You have to hope that Richard bounces back from this. He was playing tremendous. He was having an All-American year. I really believe that losing Richard LeCounte really took Georgia off track and probably ultimately was part of the deciding factor against Florida. With Richard in there, those wheel routes aren't happening. He's what you call an eraser. He makes the adjustments. Very difficult loss for Georgia. And now for Richard's career. You know, everybody is behind Richard LeCounte. Everybody is hoping for the best for Richard LeCounte. The fact that he's not going to be at the Senior Bowl, though, very disappointing and shocking news to find that out last week, that Richard LeCounte's agent pulled him out of the Senior Bowl. We'll be trying to talk to Richard LeCounte. We're trying to talk to all the Georgia players. We've gone through the Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, very heavily restricted access. Can't get in the hotel to meet with the guys. Can't flag them down after practice. They're only bringing 4 guys out. And the Georgia guys, none of the Georgia guys there are really the frontline guys, so to speak. A lot of the quarterbacks are. That's why you've heard so much about Jamie Newman. Saw Mel Kiper and Todd McShay talk about Jamie Newman. They did a breakdown on Senior Bowl guys. They didn't mention any of the Georgia guys. And what we tried to do was talk to the Georgia players, because this is a week when players need good publicity. This is a week when they need to be talked about. And the Georgia players that are down there have all done incredible things in their career, but they declined interviews through the University of Georgia. We went through Georgia, and they basically told Georgia, hey, call my agent. And that was what they did. And so we have not been able to get in touch with them. We will continue to try to get in touch with them. I've seen some things from Monty Rice. I've reached out to Monty with a note to see if I can get Monty to do an interview and talk to us about how he's faring down there at the Senior Bowl. But right now, the players are just kind of getting settled in. Tonight they did a run. Everybody has been quarantined since they reported on Saturday. 6 Georgia players there. I'll tell you, looking at these quarterbacks, a little surprised in a way that Kyle Trask pulled out, but not surprised. I'll be honest. I'm critical of Kyle Trask. I don't think Kyle Trask is an NFL quarterback. Now, he may make me eat my words, but I don't see him elevating to starting quarterback. I don't think he has the mobility. And I think a lot of his magic had to do with the great receivers that he threw to. That's the magic for all quarterbacks. And Kyle's got a quick trigger. But that lack of mobility really concerns me, as does the knee brace. Watching him play on that knee just looked like a guy, that just didn't quite have the mobility. Kellen Mond, another guy I've just never been in love with. I know he's big and strong with a big arm, but I've just never seen the type of fluid movement that you need to see at the quarterback position. Now, Mond might surprise me at the next level, but I just don't see it for a guy that's played that much football. Mac Jones, same thing. I think this is a guy that, I don't want to say ordinary, but by NFL standards, he's not a playmaker. He has no mobility. And I'm just not sure about the pocket awareness, So that's why I kind of cringed this year when so many people were trying to compare Trask and Jones to Joe Burrow. I was saying, no, there's such a difference. Watching Joe Burrow last year, Georgia fans, they saw the escapability that Joe Burrow had. They saw the playmaking ability, the plays he was able to make off the run with his legs as well. I didn't see that out of Jones and Trask. I just can't see it. I see more upside out of Franks, but as our friend from the Draft Bible said, the injuries with Felipe Franks kind of bother you, and you just wonder about the processor, right? How quickly is Felipe getting through that? He made some big mistakes at Florida. I thought this year at Arkansas he looked good, though. I was impressed with him. Book and Ellinger, just not sure that I see NFL arms there. Decent mobility from both of them, but I'm kind of in the good college quarterback camp. Not so sure about them as NFL quarterbacks. And then Jamie Newman. All the Georgia fans' favorite guy, right? Jamie was not winning the starting job at Georgia at the time he left. So what does that tell us? The fact that he wasn't able to win the job at Georgia over JT Daniels, who at the time, Kirby said thought would be eligible to start the season. JT would have beaten him out had JT been healthy, was what was happening, is what I'm hearing, right? Now you look at a guy like Newman, though, 6'4", 230, and I think of a guy like Steve McNair. And when McNair first went to the NFL, he wasn't ready to go either. The Titans knew that when they took him out of Alcorn State. And they didn't redshirt him, right? But they gave him time to marinate and adjust to the game. I wonder if Jamie Newman could be that sort of quarterback that somebody says, you know what? This guy has got a cannon of an arm. He's got good mobility. He's strong, and he's a good character guy. So I do think you'll see Newman get drafted. As for the Georgia guys, going down the list, I think this is a really big game for Monty Rice. Monty did good things at Georgia, filling against the run. They really wanted to see how he could do in pass coverage. He's going to get tested in this game. Really big for Mark Webb as well. Mark's a guy that checks all the boxes with the attitude, but I just didn't see anything dynamic enough out of Mark Webb. So I want to take a look here, looking at the comments on YouTube and Facebook, see what questions you guys have for me tonight. Talking Georgia football. Still no secondary coach. I mean, am I the only one here taking note of what's happening at Alabama, right? With first Bill O'Brien being the coordinator, and now Doug Marrone is the offensive line coach. It's almost as if Nick Saban is upping the ante on Kirby Smart, saying, look, I know you're thrilled about getting Scott Cochran, my away coach, to coach your special teams, but Alabama over here is hiring NFL coaches for their staff. Can Georgia answer, and do they need to answer? I'm going to take a minute here. I see some people are still questioning Jamie Newman. I want to give you the flip side. And I understand why Georgia fans are upset, but I want to give you the flip side. First, I want you to stop thinking of him as a guy that hurt your team. And imagine that this was your brother, or imagine that this was your son, and he could have transferred anywhere in the country, and Georgia came along and said, transfer to us. We want you. So you transfer to Georgia. You put all your chips all in. You got one grad transfer year, and you go all in on Georgia. And then COVID strikes, right? And so you're not able to work out and learn this new offense. And you go into fall camp, and they've taken another transfer, right? JT Daniels, they brought this other guy in. And now you may not start ahead of this other guy. Now, did they tell Jamie Newman in January that there was going to be another transfer? Probably not, right? Now, is it Jamie Newman's fault that he wasn't good enough? Well, I don't know. I mean, this strikes me as someone that's worked really hard. I guess all I'm saying is this. There's two sides to the story here. And Jamie Newman hasn't said anything bad about Georgia. And what I have seen from his teammates on Twitter is support. I've seen Monty Rice come out supporting him. I've seen Jake Camarda come out supporting him. So the fact that he made a business decision, I don't think that Georgia fans can question. They can say, well, we're disappointed by that. But he was not your starting quarterback. And he was not on his way to being the starting quarterback. And because of that, he decided to leave, right? Georgia brought another guy to the table. Now, did they bring him because Jamie wasn't doing what he was supposed to do to win the job? I don't know that. I know the guy made a business decision. That's what I do know. And I also know that at the time he left, people were under the assumption that JT Daniels was going to start the first game. Now, had he known JT Daniels wasn't going to start, would Jamie Newman have beaten out Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis? We'll never know. But what we are going to find out this week is what this kid's future is. He picked Georgia out of all the other schools. He put his chips all in on Georgia. This is where he thought his best future options were. And then COVID happened. And as we all know, we've all made different decisions. So I guess I would just say, if I'm a Georgia fan, and I'm not, I'm a Georgia reporter, but it's not a good look. Okay. I'm not going to tell you, you can think however you want. You can call people out however you want, but it doesn't make the fan base look good, because there's two sides to the story here. He bought in on Georgia, and Georgia brought in another transfer. Now, why, how, when, all the details, that's up for grabs. But to just assume that it's all Jamie Newman's fault, you're probably being naive, and you're probably not looking at it objectively like you would if it was your son, or like you would if it was your brother. And again, I can't tell you how to feel. I know some Georgia fans are always going to be bitter that he left the program. But the fact of the matter was he was not named the starting quarterback. 8 months in, Kirby had still not named him the starting quarterback. So maybe that's Jamie's fault. But the fact is you didn't lose your starting quarterback. So I think there's two sides of the story. Enough on Jamie Newman. Let's talk a little bit more about other players in the Georgia program. Again, we've tried to reach the Georgia players. Very difficult to get a hold of. Georgia has really gone closed down. Kirby Smart has really closed things down over there. That's his preference. He likes to follow the lead of Nick Saban in that way. You see a lot of the things at Georgia that are following after Nick Saban, except for the hires, right? We haven't seen an NFL coach hired yet. Saban's hired Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone, and I think that really ups the ante. What was already going to be a very important hire for the secondary, with Charlton Warren moving on to become the defensive coordinator in Indiana. So much uncertainty at that position. You've had 8 guys leave the secondary since the end of the 2019 season. 3 of them transfers, right? 3 transfers, 2 early entrants into the NFL draft this year with Eric Stokes and Tyson Campbell. Really the only regular that you've got back is Lewis Seen. And he's a special guy to have back. Christopher Smith started, the second half of the season after Richard LeCounte's injury. Be interesting to see what happens there with him and Major Burns. And then you wonder about a guy like Keely Ringo coming off the torn labrum. What will he do? Jalen Kimber, a very talented cornerback. Really wanted to see more of him in the bowl game. Instead, they went with Tyreek Stevenson, and then Tyreek transferred. So that was kind of wasted snaps there. If Tyreek was going to transfer, why would you start him at cornerback? Kind of makes you wonder if he kind of jerked Georgia around a little bit. Because if they knew he was transferring, they wouldn't have given him those snaps. I don't think they would have given him those snaps. But for him to play and get those valuable reps instead of a guy, like a Jalen Kimber, you just kind of wonder, what was going on with there. So the secondary hire still needs to happen. Today I reported now that Will Muschamp has got that buyout money out of the way. You saw he settled for $12.9 million. Boy, that's a heck of a settlement to get fired there at South Carolina. But now that that's settled, Will should be free to take another job and be hired in an official capacity. That doesn't mean that he definitely will, no pun intended, but he has been around the program quite a bit, going back to the bowl practices. Now his son is there. Jackson is a walk-on, plays some quarterback, plays some receiver, can play a little scout team defense, good football player, preferred walk-on. The opportunity for Will to be around his son, it's very unique. I'm sure he'll treasure this time. But while he's there, do we believe that he's providing some advice and some counsel and lending his eyes to Kirby Smart? Well, of course he is. That's what football coaches do. It's inherent for them. It doesn't really require effort. It comes naturally for Will to say, hey, Kirby, did you ever notice, when so-and-so does this, he does that? I mean, these are things that coaches just inherently pick up on. And if you've got an expert like Will Muschamp around, why wouldn't you listen to him, right? Why wouldn't you want to bring Will on in an advisor type of role? It just makes sense for Muschamp to be here, spend this time with his son, work with his old friend Kirby Smart in kind of an advisory role, and make a little bit of money. It's not even about the money for Muschamp. Like I said, he just banked $12.9 million lump sum. It's not even, there's always a little bit about the money for these guys, but you don't got to break the bank to have him on your staff. As one of these advisory guys that watches over things and provides some feedback, right? Dan Lanning's an incredibly talented young DC, and Lanning can benefit from some time around Will Muschamp. I don't think Lanning will be threatened by it. Lanning is like a sponge. To me, Lanning, I'm really kind of surprised that he hasn't been hired as a head coach. I thought this year somebody might jump him because I just think he is such a gifted coach. And you can see the players want to play for Dan Lanning, right? They really love Dan. They really connect to Dan Lanning. He has a very special relationship with those defensive players. And, when you can relate to your players like that and get your guys to play for you, I think that bodes well. And knowing what Dan's done to get to where he's at, I think it's just a matter of time before he gets a really good head coaching opportunity. I know he's had some opportunities before. It was good to see he didn't make the lateral move to Texas. That speaks well for Georgia. That would have been a whale of an opportunity for him to go with Sarkisian, probably an easier place to win frankly, if you're Texas, you're that much above the rest of the Big 12 in terms of research. I should say you're that much ahead of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma and Texas are that much ahead of the rest of the Big 12, but pretty much a 2-horse race every year in the Big 12. And he could have gone there. Instead, coming back to coach at a place like Georgia, where if you don't win the SEC championship, it's a disappointment. That's where Georgia's at right now. It's an expectation to win the East. It's a disappointment if you don't win the SEC, because Kirby has climbed the mountain before. And that's why I think this season is so important for Kirby Smart with JT Daniels and his weaponry at wide receiver. Just quite an arsenal there. I did a show this morning, in the radio guy asked me about, what's Brock Vandergrift going to do? I said he's going to learn. He's going to sit and learn, because Georgia in the fourth quarter needs to be dispersing the ball to these receivers and these running backs. What happened last year at South Carolina? Kirby manages every game in the best interest of that game for his team at that time. But I think he recognizes that he's got to get these receivers targets, and he's got to get these backs touches. Like they're not all here to make 2 or 3 catches and block in the fourth quarter, or get 4 or 5 carries and sit on the bench and watch the 5th string running back get 14 carries. That's not why they're here. And, there was a time, I think, where you manage game, but with the offense that Georgia's going to have and some of the youth on defense, I think you're going to see a lot more pedal to the metal on offense. I think Kirby Smart has trust in Todd Monken. It takes time for staffs to gel. Even when you hire a guy, and you can delegate all you want, but it takes time for head coaches to get comfortable with these coordinators, right? Kirby has a certain way he wants his team to operate, just like any other head coach. And he has to get comfortable with what Monken's going to do, right? The right hand's got to know what the left hand's doing in the planning and in live action. And then you got to be comfortable that your quarterback's going to execute and can be the brain on the field, because, JT Daniels, that first game, I mean, he pushed it downfield more than I think, Kirby would have preferred, right? Kirby said we have to look at our decision-making. They're 401 yards and 4 touchdowns, but it can't be like that every game, right? Part of that had to do with the way Mississippi State was playing the coverage. So I think those last 4 games for Georgia, I think they were really big. I think it's important that they had time with JT to kind of get an idea of what he can do, test out some of those weapons. You got to see Arian Smith get his feet wet, boys. Is he super fast? You got to see Pickens come alive. Jermaine Burton, although Burton, had some COVID going on there, so he had to practice for the Peach Bowl, didn't quite look like himself. Darnell Washington emerged. A lot of really promising things happened at the end of last season. So I think it's going to be pretty fascinating. Aaron Barlow asking me about cornerback transfers. Who do you target? Not sure if target is the word, right? If they're in the portal, all right, then you pursue. But if they're already on a team, you can't really interfere, or that's tampering. So I think you wait and see who's in the portal, what graduate transfers come available. And my feeling on this is you're going to see a lot of movement after spring drills rather than now. Originally the NCAA was supposed to meet and determine the name, image, likeness, and the one-time transfer. That was supposed to happen this month. And they with the election, all that, they basically just pushed it back. They said, you know what, let's put it on the shelf. Let's move it back. And when that happened, I think a lot of the potential transfers, like an Eric Gilbert, might have got a little leery. So wait a minute. We're not exactly sure what's going to come out on this. So let's wait and see what direction the NCAA is going. So I think that has kind of slowed things down a little bit. And as far as the transfers are going, I see Doug Lambert saying, hey, we'll tell Miami that, hey, give Miami credit. They were aggressive. They're going after guys. Interesting. William Perry, Georgia Ethics Walk Dog. The 3-1 thing is interesting, but if they play that game, they can't come back. Is that correct? Correct. If you play in the Senior Bowl, you're done. So interesting stuff here tonight. Been a fascinating week in the SEC. Certainly the woes at Tennessee. You wonder now if Tony Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, could he be going to Tennessee as the head coach? And how would that affect Clemson, right? Clemson's got everybody back on defense, but the offense has got a little rebuilding to do. Got some very talented receivers, and DJ Ugolaya has done an incredible job in his opportunities. A guy that JT Daniels played against in high school, by the way, in 2017. JT met DJ twice. They were at rival schools in that Trinity League, and it won both times. But DJ is an incredible talent. You talk about a guy that looks like a future NFL quarterback. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. I look at Tennessee now, and man, would Luke Fickell be a good coach? I know Georgia fans were impressed with Luke Fickell. I look at Matt Campbell out there at Iowa State. I if you can win there, right, you can win anywhere. But you're hearing names like Sonny Dykes and you just James Franklin, and you're going, wow, I just don't know if I see. But again, that's why Danny White was hired. I mean, they're paying their AD $1.8 million. I mean, that's twice what Josh Brooks is making at Georgia. Now, Danny White is accomplished, and Josh Brooks is a first-time AD here at Georgia. And Josh, by the way, in the Muschamp thing right now, no comments on that. These are pretty hot waters for a young AD to step his toe in. And Kirby's running that show. He's got to be sensitive to what Kirby tells him to do. So I completely understand where Josh Brooks is at with that. I mean, Kirby's the king, right? I mean, that's the nickname, King Kirby. That's what he's known at around Athens. Nothing happens without Kirby knowing it. He's kind of an all-knowing guy, very powerful, very politically powerful person in Athens, Georgia, with a lot of control over there at the University of Georgia. So, whereas I think Danny White, this $1.8 million accomplished AD from Central Florida, you wonder he's going to be calling the shots, but what if he brings in that big name guy? Does Danny White feel like that guy works for him, or does Danny work for that guy, right? Josh said, he knows Kirby Smart's his star. They say, hey, the AD position, McGarry used to say that, their job is to try to facilitate what the coaches need so they can win at Georgia. But if you get a $1.8 million AD, is it still the same mentality? I'd be interested in knowing how that's going to shake out. I think Tennessee needs an established coach that can help them recruit, but I just don't see that name out there. I just don't. Now Chad brings up Gus Malzahn. That's interesting, right? Because what's the one thing Tennessee can't do? Well, they can't beat Alabama, and they got to play them every year. They got to play them every year on their schedule. So would Gus Malzahn really be that much of a reach, Chad? I don't know. I think he could make sense. I could see that, certainly. What do we got in here, guys? Looking on your checking this out. Let's see here. Okay, getting some messages on the screen. I want to keep up with you guys. Cornerback coach, who's the target? Aaron, I really thought that maybe Corey Raymond this time, that Kirby might make another run at that LSU DB coach. But, he's from there at LSU. I believe he played there. And I don't even know if it's a financial deal. I don't even know if there's a dollar figure that Kirby could pay him to come to Georgia and be the secondary coach. That would be a great hire for Georgia. We've seen a lot of names bandied about and speculated on. I know this about Kirby. He moves at his own pace. He never panics. He's a guy that plays things out. He's very thorough. Kirby's a guy that turns over every rock before making a decision. And I think he realizes, just how important this position hire is, with the fact they've still got to add some corners. As a lot of you ask me, who are the guys that are out there? I don't know, right? I mean, I don't know what direction George is looking. Again, Kirby, plays this out. He's going to look at all the options before he makes a decision. So it's going to be a fascinating week, I think, at Georgia this week. I would expect some movement on the coach front. We're that much closer to the first Wednesday in February, which is National Signing Day. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on that. Georgia basketball coming off a tough loss. Florida, just guys that could jump out of the gym and shut the lights out. Tough matchup for the Bulldogs. They were coming off their first win over Kentucky in 8 years, had gotten a little excitement going with the back-to-back wins at Ole Miss and over Kentucky. And Florida kind of knocked him down again. We'll see if Georgia can bounce back on the road at South Carolina Wednesday night, and then home against Ole Miss. It's another opportunity for Georgia to get back-to-back wins, try to get some momentum going with guys like Severe Wheeler and Katie Johnson. I don't know if you've watched him lately, but they're a lot of fun, right? These guys play hard, kind of a unit that's been kind of scrabbled together with the three graduate transfers from Stony Brook, Virginia Tech, and George Mason. But the older players play really hard, but Georgia, always the smaller team on the floor, and really not much margin for error. So Crane's coaching them up, but they got to hit the shots if they're going to win ball games. And they got to keep getting steals. Right now, I believe they lead the league in steals and rank in the top 20 in the country. So Georgia doing some things to try to compensate for that lack of size. I think the Wednesday night game against South Carolina is going to be a really good one. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to some Georgia football news. I'll be doing my best to keep up with the Senior Bowl from afar. As Zach mentioned, they'll be putting some information out. We'll do our best to get our hands on that. They're completely understaffed. Only one PR guy trying to run the show down there amid these crazy COVID circumstances. So not the kind of coverage that we would normally like to bring you, but we gave you a couple of setup pieces on Jamie Newman. We talked with Zach from the NFL Draft Bible. And tomorrow I will have a complete breakdown of each player from the Senior Bowl executive director, Jim Nagy, former NFL scout with the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks. Jim, a Super Bowl winning scout that went down and really broke down each of the 6 Georgia football players. You're going to get an opportunity to check that out. I look at Kathy here saying you don't like my Gator colors. I don't know what it looks like, Kathy, but I'm wearing black and gray and red, so I'm not exactly sure what Gator colors that you're referring to. Cisco asking me, hear you on 3-Man Front. Cisco, I do that show every Monday on WJOX. I was on earlier today at 2:30. So every Monday at 2:30, I do that show. And the Ticket in Atlanta on Monday mornings. You can catch me there at 8:20. The Ref in Athens every Monday at 8 a.m. Tomorrow at 9:20 Eastern time. I'll be on 6:50 a.m. in Nashville. Do a lot of these different media appearances throughout the week. They all want to know about Georgia, right? Whether it's Nashville, whether it's Birmingham, Atlanta, Athens, Georgia has become a regional dynamo. And, while the Bulldogs haven't broken through yet on the field, they've certainly broken through in terms of popularity. And I'm one of the people who really, benefits from that. Because people want to hear opinions and they want to have information about what's going on here in Athens. Of course, it's really one-stop shopping for you at Dog Nation. You have Brandon Adams on every day, Dog Nation Daily, every weekday, usually between 10 and 10:15. Brandon will do his show. I do the Monday night Ingles on the Beat show. Connor Riley comes at you Tuesday night. Jeff Santel, Between the Hedges on Wednesday night. And then we do our Cover 4 on Thursday, where the whole team kind of gets together and does kind of a panel breakdown on different items. So I hope you get a chance to catch us. If not in our stories on dognation.com or on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at MikeGriffith32. I'm always lobbying for more followers, right? I don't know if it happened for you guys, but I lost a ton of followers a few weeks ago. I lost like 200 followers. Like, what happened? Something to do with the politics, something to do with the election. I don't know. So followers are always appreciated. Those Gator fans like to come at me hard. Follow me at MikeGriffith32 on Twitter. Want to thank my producer, Michael Carvel. Michael does a great job with the show on Monday nights, helping me get through the show and helping me with my guests. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Really look forward to next week's show, next Monday night. You'll catch me here again. You'll see me later this week, Thursday night on Cover 4. Everybody, have a great week. Thanks for joining me on the Eagles on the Beat show.